All right, everybody, welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Double check Dale over here, along with Blake, man of the boards, and then you have the ever-present, the ever loud, what do you want to call me?
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent, is that what you're going to go with? That drive safe, Dave. Hey, let me just tell you a couple of things I want to announce for you. Number one, the rail strike is now officially over as Biden has signed into law the rail strike agreement, therefore, the rail union agreement, therefore not allowing them to strike here before the season. So if anybody was worried about the rail strike, it is over. It will not happen. We will be proceeding forward, and the rails will be running. The trains will be moving.
You can rest easy now.
You can rest it. You know what? Crisis averted. No rail strike going on. So there you have it. Is not going to happen. Secondly, we want to make sure everybody knows that there might be a little wind going on in Colorado and Wyoming. Now, there's always wind in Wyoming, but I wanted to make sure everybody knows that out in Colorado, there's some big wind going on.
There's some big winds, and it is working its way east. I mean, Nebraska, Kansas,
it will
Missouri.
dissipate as it moves east.
Some of it stays into the overnight hours. Some of it stays up in Missouri and Kansas, stays into the overnight hours. Strong winds up in there. So, I mean, it's...
I saw some is reaching 65 miles an hour. I don't think any of those are moving that strong east.
Probably not at 65.
Yeah, I saw some.
But 60. I saw some 60.
Did you?
I did.
I don't know how it's possible because on November 30th, it was officially the end of hurricane season.
I know. How about that?
So I just don't know why we have hurricanes going on in Denver right now.
Yeah, the winds are pretty strong up there. I don't know why they do either. I mean, maybe
they don't know where they're supposed to be. Is that what it is? They just get lost and go somewhere else. The season's over. I'm going back to Denver.
Yeah, they said, you know what? I'm not going to measure it out in the Atlantic anymore. We're just going to send it up to Denver. And
be cautious in the area running those big trucks up in that way around there, and understand that out there moving at a click speed, at a good speed in the high winds, you will get pushed over.
Yeah.
You will get pushed over. Yep. And I don't care how much you got in the box, it can push you over at 65 miles an hour without problem.
You know, and I was looking at it down around Raton Pass, and I'm sure it's not right along I-25, but they said they're expecting a gust as high as 90. You know what?
90's no bueno.
Yeah,
90's no bueno. That'll knock you over.
Yeah.
All right, so understand, be cautious, we just want to remind everybody that what's going on. Anything else you got for me to let me know about what you got going on, man? I do know we were talking about a little bit about some interesting headlines in the news, and one of them was the Royals are in the United States, and they're making some headlines about being here. Not interested. I'm in trucking. Yeah. Not interested.
When you said the Royals, I go, Kansas City's had that team for years. I'm going, what the heck are you talking about, bro?
Exactly.
I didn't see the same headlines that Dave saw, so.
Different headline. Yeah.
Different headlines.
I don't care that there's the monarchy.
And the World Cup. We play in the World Cup tomorrow?
We do play. I think we play Netherlands. Germany got eliminated yesterday.
Ooh.
Germany got eliminated. Probably one of the favorites to win got eliminated yesterday. And Mexico got eliminated the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Called my buddy. Drilled that one in. Hey, you estimated. Where's Mexico tomorrow? Headed home. Yep. Headed to the La Casa, baby.
That's right. Watching it from the sofa.
Watching it from the couch. All right. We're excited about that. I'll tell you what, we'll be back in just a minute. I want to get started here. We've got a great interview today. I got Gary and Mike in here today. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on and a little bit about the future of safety in this country. A great way to look at it. We're going to talk about those here in just a second. But before we go, double check, what is it that you most want to say today on a Friday before we start the interview process?
23 days till Christmas.
23 days to Christmas, that's where he's going. It's okay now to play Christmas music
That's right.
on the radio. It's okay now.
And if you want to wear that Santa hat in, wear the Santa hat
on Fridays.
On Fridays.
Not, you were wearing it the other day, and I wasn't trying. I was like, that's still a hat, dude. We get to wear hats on Fridays.
I got permission from HR.
Oh.
How
Wow.
about that?
I didn't know that. I'm going to call HR after this.
you're
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. There's a visit coming up.
All right, we'll be back in just a second, right after these messages here on BCB Live.
The safest station in the nation.
All right, we'll be right back.
You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. BCB Live covers freight.
Here we are now at 21% of record freight being rejected.
News.
Down in Texas, we're going to talk a little bit about this. We had another $1.5 million seizure. If ever there's a time to do a pre or post trip, it's if you're doing something wrong.
Weather, traffic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to some traffic and weather with Buckle Up Bob. You can kind of see where the visibility can be compromised a little bit. Again, right where that rain is.
And most importantly, safety.
One of the things that we must do is make sure that safety is the number one thing that we focus on.
Going into an intersection, yellow is not the way. That's to clear an intersection, not to enter an intersection.
Tune in weekdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch BCB Live through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here, along with a cool panel this morning. I got Mike Lutzenkirchen and Gary Alexander. I'm going to introduce both of them collectively, but first of all, Mike, you are with the Lutze 43 Foundation. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And why don't you tell us basically what that is and what it does?
Yeah, the Lutze 43 Foundation is based in Marietta, Georgia. Unfortunately, it was founded upon a loss of my son, Philip, who lost his life in a single vehicle crash as a passenger along with the driver, 2014. Philip had created quite a platform, being a captain at Auburn University, a member of the 2010 National Championship team, had a short run in the NFL at the St. Louis Rams, lost his life at age 23. Unfortunately, with all too many familiar characteristics. The kids were speeding. They'd been drinking all day. They were out at 2:30 in the morning. 3 of the 4 kids weren't wearing a seatbelt. It was a beautiful Sunday, early Sunday morning. There had been distractions in the vehicle, and it laid out for us to go do something through the foundation. It's called the Lutze 43 Foundation, and we spend every day trying to figure out how we make our roads safer through different partnerships that we're creating in the Southeast, and we're on a quest to create a nationwide symbol that's lacking right now, that when we all would look at it, it would trigger us to be smarter and safer drivers.
Thank you very much. And Gary Alexander, CEO at Improv Learning, tell us what you do and what it is that you do.
Well, first, Mike, I'm just listening to your story. Just think couldn't help it. It's cheered up a little bit. I mean, as a parent, my heart goes to you and the family. The way you got it, but also my hat is off to you for really not treating this loss in vain and really using it for something greater than the sum of all. So it's really my hat off. So our company is really trying to accomplish the same goal. It is reducing traffic death and fatalities and injuries that are, it seems like, an upward trend again. And we try to innovate in a way that really resonates with today's modern driver. That's, in a nutshell, our mission and our goal: to rethink the ordinary and save lives along the way.
All right, so let's get right to it. The problems of today, they're very apparent, right, in all of us. We see it every day out there on the road. We see it in the numbers of injuries every day. We see it in the numbers of fatalities every year, over 40,000 people getting killed. Whatever we're doing, it genuinely isn't enough right now, right, Mike? I mean, honestly, we're not doing enough, correct?
Yeah, again, I'm going to give you the observations of a father who lost a son, and I think, like most families that lost a child, we didn't position ourselves being in this position. We would have said we're not in this position. So, it's caused me the opportunity to go speak everywhere from audiences of teenagers to college-age kids to adults. And when you look at those categories, Dave, the leading cause of death, if not the number one cause of death as a high school student, continues to be distracted driving. A leading cause of death, if not number one in a college campus, is distracted and impaired. And where it really came full circle to us in 2018 for all of us adult drivers, regardless of what industry you're in, a leading cause of death gets classified as MVC, motor vehicle crash. And we looked at that and said, when the numbers come out from NHTSA on a quarterly basis and they're going in the wrong direction, they're growing, it's insanity to continue to do the same things over and over. Gary and I were talking about this before going live. Our belief is that we need to create a symbol in this country that when everybody looks at it, it's going to trigger a behavioral response that says, I'm not going to text and drive. I'm not going to do Facebook Live while I'm driving. I'm not going to drive with lunch on my lap. I'm going to have the courage as a teenager to tell all my passengers, regardless of state laws, that you got to wear a seatbelt. I'm going to have the courage to tell my friends, no, I'm not going to show I can get my dad's pickup up to 100 miles an hour on this interstate. It's going to, what we're trying to do is put teens in front of tractor trailers, drivers, professionals through our summits that we're doing so that they understand what they can do as a new driver inexperienced in a 4,500 pound vehicle, a experienced driver in an 80,000 pound tractor trailer cannot do. And unfortunately, what we learn is that 80% of the accidents or crashes that involve a tractor trailer, it's not the fault of the trucking industry, it's us driving around them. So we think we've got some things we're building that are different than what are in place today, and we're excited to share those with your audience.
Man, I appreciate that. And listen, Gary, and I was listening in on the conversation y'all were having. It's not only what we're doing, and I get it, but our state programs and our government, it's lacking too. I mean, we're trying, but it's genuinely not enough either, is it?
Yeah, 100%. And with your permission, I might correct your question a little bit. I think the better question is not what we can do more of, but how can we do this differently? Because as Mike pointed out, we're now facing a classic definition of insanity, right? We keep doing the same thing for the last 60 years, and the trends are going in the opposite direction. So it's not what we're going to do or how are we going to spread the gospel, but really, how can we approach things differently and using modern techniques and tactics that are available. Let's face it, and I'm not only talking about traffic safety. Classrooms are typically the last place where innovation is getting adopted. So we're still teaching kids using techniques and philosophies that have been adopted in early 60s. And I think that's part of the problem.
I totally understand what you're saying by that, because I'm in an industry in which it's all about training, concentrating, and doing out there, trying to make a difference to be safer. And we're still watching some of the same videos that were made way before I was born, and that, gentleman, was a long time ago. I will tell you, listen, one of the main reasons I got you guys on here is I truly believe we can change. I truly believe there is solutions. I want to hear them. I'm going to give you an example of why I think it's important. One of the most innovative things in the United States, the most innovative things ever, was the seat belt, the 3-point seat belt ever to go into a vehicle. There was a lot of resistance to seat belts being implemented, and I remember when they came in the 80s. Now, there were seat belts came in the 70s, the lap belt, but when the crossover belt came along in the 80s, there was some resistance to it, but the number of people's lives it changed and saved was remarkable. There's no doubt in anybody's mind here, your chances of a fatality reduced by half if you got a seatbelt on. And that took a long time for all of us to realize it. Let me tell you who does it better than anybody about putting seatbelts on, really, are young people. Because that's just the world they grew up in, and it is a standard by which they live. Now, truly, it happens. So and I only use that as an example because that's what I want to get into is the meat of it. How do we train the next generation to be better than we ever were? Because we aren't really good at it, and we all think we're great drivers. I don't know very many people that said, I suck at driving. Every person I've ever met says I'm pretty good at it. So how do we change the next generation? I'm going to start off, Mike. I know you've got an idea, but there's got to be more than just one way. There's no real silver bullet here. What are some of your ideas?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Dave. Let me just kind of preface this. My comments aren't meant to be criticism towards anybody, towards the trucking industry, towards individual drivers, or the government. Our belief and our foundation is we need to create a new cause. When I sit in the C-suite, I typically ask them about 3 audiences, and I ask them to judge them on a scale of 1 to 10 and how they think they're doing. As far as, let's start out with the commercial logoed vehicle drivers of any company. How are you doing with delivering your safety culture, the frequency of it, the importance of it, the messaging? How often are you refreshing it? And the average score I get in corporate America is, Mike, we're somewhere between a 7 and 8. So everybody's admitting, even if it's C-suite, they can improve that. I asked them next about the audience, about what are all your employees that do not drive one of your local vehicles? How would you rate the same passion for that employee base? And I'll be honest with you, the average score I get is a 5. They don't think they're doing a good job of it. And the light bulb starts to go off. And the third audience I ask is, how are you doing? And I pretty much know the answer. How are you doing then to deliver the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars you're spending on safety cultures, safety programs for all of the family members of your employees that are driving age family members? And you get a blank stare, and you get mostly, the average is probably a 2, because some I think are speaking out of turn saying, Mike, we're at about a 4. I have companies, most companies say, Mike, we don't look at that audience. So we think what we're trying to accomplish is, how do we educate the teen? How do we educate the college student? How do we educate the adult drover? We're thinking we need to create a new cause. And I'll sit with that leadership and they say, Mike, we invest in Alzheimer's research or Wounded Warrior Project or breast cancer awareness or feeding the hungry. And I say, please continue to do that. But there's another cause where everybody's globally impacted by, because they're either themselves driving it, they're in a vehicle, they've been in a crash, they've been in a near crash. It's this crossover. What we think we're doing with 43 Key Seconds is going to protect your company, your employees, extend it to all of your employees, and then extend it beyond your walls to those family members. That starts to create a new cause in the community. And my true belief is, Dave and Gary, is that most companies that are profitable want to give back. They want to give to those to share their wealth and their profits. And we think we're onto something. We're partnering up with some government entities to do that. There's a unique program we're doing in Georgia with the DOT. So our big thing is, what's different? Let's change the game. Let's bring corporate to the table with government and the government entities that have this responsibility. So I'm talking about DOT, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, possibly law enforcement, Department of Public Safety. Let's come together and share the wealth of corporate with the investment by government and maybe do some things different.
I totally agree. I know we have to do that if we're going to get there. Gary, I'm throwing it over to you, the exact same question. I want to hear what you have to say as far as solutions. Let's go there. Come on.
Well, I tell you, Mike is a tough act to follow, because I think he just really nailed it. I can just really add to it that the key is not educating kids. The key is educating parents and grandparents, because kids don't start learning to drive at 16, they start learning it at 6. And I think the reason why the seatbelt culture is so well adopted is because adults have accepted it. And so a 6-year-old getting into a car,
agreed,
watches his mom and dad putting a seatbelt, but what else they see? They whip that phone and start texting the minute they pull out of the driveway. So I think changing the culture, both at work, but more importantly at home, and really leading by example, because that's where these kids learn. And at 16, it's really too late to re-educate and forget about when you get older. And we talked about it at the earlier show I did with you guys, and we just immune to the facts. It's not that most adults are bad drivers. I think we just stop giving them. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It just became such an automatic thing for us to do that we don't talk about fatalities. We don't really, we just don't think about it. So a lot of the things unfortunately happen unconsciously, and I see a lot of times, once you break it down to an adult parent, they do have an aha moment. It's the stuff we just stop thinking about it, and that's a shame.
It is a shame, and I'll tell you, and as we continue to talk about it, you look at our culture, our society, and the way we view it. It's pretty incredible that almost every adult I know has been impacted by somebody in their lives being either killed or hurt in some way. You can't get to the age we are, guys, if not a family member or a relative or a friend or a high school buddy or somebody has not been either killed because of the sheer volume in this country of this epidemic that we got going on as far as hurting each other out there on the roads. Because that's what we're doing. we're hurting each other out there on the roads. We're hurting ourselves and we're hurting each other because I truly believe we're not doing enough to be safe. Now, and I please don't hold back. If you disagree with me, I'm good. If you think somebody's not doing it right, it's okay to say that here. You're not going to offend anybody on this show if they're not doing enough for safety. I truly believe that it's everybody that we have to hit, not just I want the adults to learn, but here we got an opportunity to go after the 5-year-olds in the elementary school. We got an opportunity to go after the kids in high school. We got an opportunity to go to everybody because it's affecting everybody. Don't you agree with that, Gary? It's truly affecting all of us. We should be going after every single person in some way.
100%. It takes a village, and it really does.
How are we going to change our conception of just how bad it is? Because I'll tell you, I can go out right now into the office here and I can walk around and I'll bet you I could ask everybody in this office, and I don't know that everybody here would know how many fatalities actually occur in the United States every year. Mike, how often do you walk in and you start talking about it? Do the light bulbs come on, or are we just so immune to it we don't hear it?
Yeah, I think, Dave, light bulbs do go off. I don't know that the average person understands that we're tracking towards about 43,000 plus deaths on our roadways in 2021, that on a quarterly basis the numbers keep going up. Ironically, the numbers, don't quote me these, I think miles driven during COVID-20 were down about 13%. Yet fatality rates went up 7%. And the experts are smarter than me. They're going to tell you why was it. People were at home. People thought they could drive faster, react differently with less vehicles on the road. People were probably driving more drunk, stoned, whatever it may be. Again, I'm a believer that you have behavioral change through images that we see. It's not what we taste. It's not what we smell. It's not what we hear. It's what we see. And my belief is, and again, I want to give NHTSA, I want to give DOT, National Safety Council, whoever the organization might be, I want to applaud their efforts. They're not doing things half-heartedly. They're doing things what they believe will make a difference. Again, I don't know how many people work in those organizations, though, that come from my world that have felt the pain and loss of a son or a child. So I might have a different perspective, but my belief is how do we not have an image in this country that when we look at it, it would trigger behavioral change. It would trigger kids to have more courage to tell their friends, I'm not going to speed and drink underage. I'm not going to let you not wear a seatbelt. Have kids have courage to go home and have a parent conversation to say, hey, Mom and Dad, I love you a lot. I just heard from this man who lost his son. You got to stop texting and driving. Dad, yes, you got to wear a seatbelt. Guys, the seatbelt issue, what we're dealing with is the experts will tell you it takes about 7 years for a major cause to come into play. And at first, there's stages that you go through, and I don't know them all, but the first stage is, hey, the government's not going to tell me I got to wear a seatbelt in my own car. And then you do it because, okay, you get past that, and you're like, hey, I'm wearing a seatbelt because now it seems to be safe and more people are doing it. Now I'm going to wear a seatbelt because if I get caught, I get penalized. And the one thing I get across any audience that I go and speak to is, if there's one thing out of my 45-minute to 60-minute talk I call Philip's Legacy, what legacy is leaving, wear a seatbelt. Statistically, I wouldn't be on your show. Statistically, had my son had a seatbelt that night in that back of that vehicle, he'd be alive. I tell that to every audience. I'm not sure the condition he'd be in, but he would be alive by wearing that seatbelt. So now, guys, where we're going, there's less focus about drunk driving than there is distracted driving. There's still a lot of people, unfortunately, when you hear the news that somebody lost their life in a single vehicle accident, well, they were ejected. They weren't wearing a seatbelt. It's just, I think we got to change the things, and it starts with getting to all the audiences, below the younger than teens, and I don't do a very good job of that, candidly, guys, getting into that 2nd grade, 5th grade, 7th grade audience. So we really impact the high school, the college, and the adult, but we're arming these kids to go home and have conversations in the most respectful way a child to an adult can have, parent, to say, you got to change, Mom and Dad, because our kids see what we do as drivers, and then they follow those behaviors. So we're all about trying to change behavioral habits and so forth. We think it happens through images, and that's what 43 key seconds is all about.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna ask this to Gary because I think, and I wanted to jump into this because I believe this to be true. How about we no longer just paying a fine with a ticket, but we're required to take, if we do a violation, if we drive bad, or if we do something wrong, we're required under the law now to always take some kind of safety driving course. No longer just paying the fine and moving on. No longer just writing it, because I think that's what we've been doing all the while with the lives on the road. We're just paying the fine and moving along and not making a difference. How about, what do you think and what do you believe about any time you go out there and you get a traffic violation of any kind, you have to go through some type of safety course or some kind of safety training to get past that ticket?
Well, I guess I can speak a little bit, and even though I have somewhat of a biased opinion because it is part of our business and part of what we do. But I think taking a notch further is, it's not just taking a course, and part of the problem is, there are quite a few people that already go through these courses on annual basis nationwide, and it's not available in every state, but most of the major states like Arizona, California, Florida, Texas, and just to name a few, have similar programs, and they either require or incentivize you to take a class. The issue, a bigger issue I see, you have this opportunity that may never happen again for a number of reasons, but the standards for these programs are almost non-existent. It's basically, the DMV, who is not really an trained to be an educator, so typically DMVs control these programs or regulate these programs. And what happens, they just put together kind of a knowledge check outline, which is really becomes a copy of a driver handbook, trying to teach more rules of the road to an experienced driver. So the core issue I see is really changing the standards, and we've been working with various state agencies as well, really changing the quality of these programs first. So before you require, again, doing more of the same, because these programs existed for a long time. Most of them are not effective, primarily because the regulation regulations that govern these programs are very weak and lack a lot of standards.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that there should be better teaching tools in that, and maybe what I was trying to get at is, I don't know that we do enough. I mean, people are getting cited out there for not driving well. I just don't think a monetary fine is the only answer to get it done. And if we need better classes, better programs, better requirements, I'm all about that. I just feel like, and I've always tried to use this example, police officers have a dangerous weapon that they have to requalify with all the time. They don't just get to use it once and they're good forever. And they have to requalify with their weapon to prove that not only they are good with it, proficient with it, but also safe with it. And how is it that we're given a 4,000 or an 80,000 pound vehicle and we don't have to requalify with that ever the rest of our lives? I think, or take any additional training, or not required to. So I truly believe that I do think that some of this is a training issue. I do think some of this is an educational issue, and that's what you two guys do. And that's the reason I got you on here, because both of you provide an education into this, and let me tell you, Mike, I'll get to this real quick. One of this is that one of the great ways that you are able to people to walk away and remember what you're doing is because of the huge impact that you have. It's your son, so it's very personal and it's very real. Right, and it impacts people collectively, and I think that seats well in that it helps people remember what you're telling them when you walk away. And I think, and I know the emblem, I like the idea of the emblem correcting that. How often do you feel that after you've spoken and come back maybe a year later, because I'm sure you've done that people continue to remember what you've told them?
Yeah, this is Dave. Thank you for the kind words. First of all, this is going to sound arrogant. I got built-in passion because of my faith in who my son was. Unfortunately, I don't want anybody else to have that same built-in passion.
Agreed.
And the way I got it, right? So, but I have great confidence that when I go back into school a couple years later, these kids, the message resonates. They remember right away when they see this 43. It's gone beyond the joking that I'm a NASCAR fan and that. And they understand where this 43 came from. They understand the message. But I think we've got to give them something visible, and something that is tangible to them. And that's what we're trying to do with this whole 43 key seconds program. It's simple. Everybody knows what a key is. It says 43 key seconds. And what we're really proud of is we're having corporate partners. I'll give you a great example. In this great state of Birmingham, or great state of Alabama, J&M Tank Lines, who their CEO, Harold Summerford, just finished his term as chairman of the American Trucking Association. I literally sat in their corporate management meeting back in January of earlier this year. It was at 9:30 in the morning. I got a chance to hear Harold's kind of speech that he's given to his employees for the year and what they're going to focus on. And I got up there to talk. I was able to piggyback on that and said, let me ask you, there's about 200 people in this room or whatever it was. How many drove here today? Hands went up. I said, how many of you drove here distracted? And I think that audience was, they know what I was asking on their phone. And I would tell you 60% of the hands went up. And that's a trucking company that makes their livelihood on getting from point A to point B safe. You can see the light bulbs go off right there, that I give them in a professional way a challenge to say something's got to change. And where I went with this and what we're proud of is they've invested in our 43 Key Seconds program. They've given our key countdown card and lanyard with a J&M logo on it to every one of their employees. It resides in their company vehicles right now. They're putting our decal on the back of their vehicles called Protected By, 43 Key Seconds on our website. So what we're doing is, to me, it's a repetitive image. You get to see this. We do a safe driving summit here in the state of Georgia through our partnership with the Georgia Department of Transportation, who's become great friends of ours. We bring 300 kids into a summit. I know what's going to happen. When I was 16-year-old, I went to a field trip. I didn't pay that great attention, but something's triggered to me. So the goal there is they learn about Protected By in these breakouts. And one of the breakout sessions is we put them inside and around a 80,000-pound tractor trailer so they can see what the driver's perspective is when they're driving. They see the blind spots. These kids are blown away. What do you mean you can't see me there? What do you mean I got to give you this much space before I cut in front of you when I try to get in front of you? They learn about what is Protected By 43 Key Seconds, and then the trucking companies that are partnering with us that have these on the back of their trailers or the back of their tanks, I know what's happening. Those 16-year-olds see that and they say, oh, that was that summit I went to. Here's what I learned in that breakout around these tractor trailers. So to me, it's repetitive information based on this image. We think that's a game changer. It's bringing together corporate. It's bringing together government, the right government entities to work in alignment together. All of us want the same thing. We want everybody to get from point A to point B without incident. And to me, it's the word is with kids, it's courtesy. All of us as drivers, we've got to be more courteous to the other person and give them respect. In the rules of the road. The penalties, I'm kind of done. In the state of Georgia, I think the max fine is $300, and it's stepping stone. It starts out at 50, goes 100, goes to 300. That's not a deterrent to almost anybody to not do something. They'll go write that check. And Dave, as you were speaking, I started thinking, what are the things of pain we like to avoid? I'm an old guy. I don't do technology very well, right? I'm still a wired house. What I pay Comcast is beyond my belief. So I got all these young people in the neighborhood saying, you got to get streaming. You got to get disconnected. I went into a Comcast to make a simple change of a box and was there an hour to get service and help.
That's what I'm talking about.
The analogy there is maybe one of the answers is when you get pulled over for a violation that was a poor decision violation, you immediately lose your license, and the only way you get it back is go back into a DMV, and you have to go through some type of training course to get that license back. Again, that involves a lot of parties coming together and cost to do that. But maybe you're onto something there, Dave, with, put us into something that we don't want to do. Maybe that would trigger us to be smarter to avoid having to go do that something we don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you on that. I think it's necessary. And one of the things I like about what Gary's doing is, Gary, you also, having been doing this for a long time, quickly understand that I can go into a classroom, right? We talked about this the other day. You go in and we sit down and we talk. Our ability first of all, we don't necessarily always want to be there, right? I mean, we're doing it because we don't necessarily always, because we've done something wrong. And we don't want to really be told what to do because we're adults. How much do we really retain in your classroom before we get out of there? Really, have you come to find out? Because we were talking about this the other day, and you pretty much said not much.
Unfortunately, not. It's not my classroom or my classroom. It's any type of learning, right? Studies showed, forget exact stats, but it's roughly about 70% of whatever you learn, even in most engaging one, is going to be gone in a few weeks, and upwards of 99% going to be gone definitely within a month. So in a nutshell, you're really left with few little nuggets that's that you can carry through the real life. And that's why I think it's great what Mike is doing with, you give them a really simple nugget to remember, be it a 43 critical seconds. We use our spider method as a reminder to look out for the other driver on the road. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'd like to see industry-wide, part of the culture, is eliminate word accident, because it really applies that you're out of control. And our spider methodology teaches, and it's proven that 4 or 5 incidents can be avoided by just really anticipating it, and that's the approach we use in our courses across the board, both for teens and adults.
I think it is impossible to have right now to have a silver bullet solution for any of these. I think multiple solutions are going to be needed to help solve this major problem we got going on. I can tell you from an industry, having driven for 20 plus years and been in the industry for 30 years, I can tell you right now that it is very hard for a truck driver to be out there dealing, because they got a Class A license, they're out there working. They deal with a lot of Class C drivers, and it is a running joke with us that we're dealing with everybody else with an average driver's license, because they're just that. Don't expect any more than average, and I don't want that for us. I don't want that for the drivers out there on the road, the professional or the non-professional drivers. I want each and every one of us to go out there with the confidence that everybody out there wants the same thing, and that's to be safe. And I think, as you guys are both very passionate about what you do and what we've got going, and both of you are working hard to make it better and safer, we have to continue to have these genuine conversations out there and struggle and fight every day. Go out and get the message out every day. And I think both of you do a great and fantastic job at that. I appreciate both of you for doing what it is you do every day. Gary, out there with your improv learning, I think it's a fantastic way to remember and get people engaged into being safe on the road. And Mike, you with your 43-second key, I think both of these are significant in what they do, and I hope the conversation continues to go on, that we build on, and that we find more solutions and better ways to deal with what we're doing, because this is an epidemic of unimaginable. I mean, it's just we would never allow this in anything else but on the roads. And I'm sorry that it's continued this way. I want to appreciate both of y'all coming in today, man, taking the time to come in and talk. I would love to have you both back here soon. Mike, before you get out of here, I want you to say who you are, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that?
Absolutely. Hey, guys, this is Mike Lutzenkirk with the Lutze 43 Foundation, Executive Director. We're based in Marietta, Georgia. Our mission is to reduce the number of injuries, crashes, and fatalities on our roadways through what we're doing with our 43 Key Seconds initiative, and it's just an honor to be on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Gary, you the same thing, sir. State your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Gary Alexander, CEO of Improv Learning, and it was an honor and privilege to be on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation, and keep up good work, keeping everyone safe out there.
Man, I appreciate it. I respect and admire both of you for what you do. Thank you guys very much. Have a great weekend.
Likewise, guys. Very good to meet you, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, these guys are doing it every day, every single day. We'll be right back with Double Check Dale to go over just a couple of safety things before we get out of here today. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to BCB Live with Double Check Dale over there, sitting cool in the yellow shirt. Drive Safe Dave with the big exclamation mark on his chest. And we got Blake manning the boards, trying to wear a Santa hat this early in the year. Not digging it just yet, but it is allowable under the law, from what I was told.
Well, on Fridays, but HR may have gave him special permission on other days.
It's like cheesy. I'm so not digging that. All right, we've been talking about all week challenges about crashes, what we can, what we can't do. What are we talking? Which one is it we're talking about here on a Friday?
We're talking about vehicles making turns, whether it be U-turns, right turns, left turns, whatever. But keep in mind, it's not the CMV. It's other people turning into us doing that. So if a vehicle is making a U-turn from a left lane in front of a CMV and strikes that CMV, that is a challengeable, eligible for challengeability. An illegal turn, if that driver, let's say a CMV is making a right-hand turn and a vehicle comes alongside of him, and we've seen that happen, and the CMV strikes that vehicle, that is also eligible for a challenge. Illegal right turn, same way. And so the big thing about the turns is the way the accident reports are wrote, to make sure we have that in the accident reports and make sure the police have included that, because that's really what they take a look at when we start doing the challenges. What does the police report say? What do the witnesses say? So I always want to make sure that we have that properly done. There are some other ones, other challengeable and non-challengeable crashes. Under the influence crashes, and again, this is a vehicle that strikes a commercial motor vehicle, not the operator of the CMV. Medical issues, falling asleep crashes, distracted driving, suicide attempts, and certain crashes involving pedestrians and cyclists. You know, the big thing is we see the ones with the double asterisks. Got to make sure we have good supporting documents before we go ahead and try to challenge that, because if we can't get good supporting documents, they're just going to say, nope, doesn't work. So that's, now you know more than you ever knew about challenging accidents in your safer sys. There you go, sir. And you're welcome.
Wow. You want to talk about being able to improve your safety score by being the victim. If you're the victim of these certain types of crashes, you do have an opportunity to help fix, help amend, and help correct your safer assist score with these challenges. Is something that you should do.
Absolutely.
Because you want people to know that if it really wasn't your fault and you weren't, and it is a challengeable, you should challenge that and make your score better, because you want it to reflect the real you.
Absolutely, because you know customers look at those scores when they decide whether or not to use you, or may look at those, and also insurance companies look at that. You just want to make sure that you've got the lowest score out there. Crash scores on your CSA are one of those ones that's one of the first things the DOT will look at. If you have a high crash score, that's one of the first ones that may start to trigger the events that trigger an audit. And so make sure you're taking care of it. Make sure that you are challenging the ones that you're eligible to challenge for.
All right. Thank you, Dale, very much. We do appreciate it, sir.
Always enjoy being here with you. Drive safe.
Thank you. Hey, everybody, remember, it is Friday. We are going to have a nice weekend, a wonderful weekend, and most of all, a safe weekend, because of what you do every single day if you do it safely.
There you go.
This is BCB Live,
the safest station in the nation.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.